Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome one of the biggest stars of the universe. He comes from a galaxy far, far away. His name is Bruce O'Hara. Bruce, he's been a member here for over 16 years. Him and his lovely wife, Carol, are the leaders of the greeters and the ushers. And that is one of our most solid teams. I love these guys. Bruce also has some credentials in the world. He's been an earth science teacher and the planetarium director in Fairfax County, Virginia, and that was for over 29 years before he came to us. So he has a lot to say about the universe and how it works, and that's all I have to say. Without further ado, we welcome our very own Bruce O'Hara.
Spiritual leader. I've been called a lot of things, but that's a new one. Check my notes here. Well, I have some really earth-shaking things to talk about here. The mysteries of life. The ones you've all asked yourself. Why is the universe here? Why am I here? Who is God? On and on. You could probably do a 5-hour seminar on these questions. I don't have 5 hours. I've got what? 20 minutes? 20 minutes? What time is it? Okay, that's about 10:30. Okay. In fact, what is time? To a child, it's simple. All time is now. I got a little 4.5-year-old granddaughter over there, I'll tell you. All right? To a child, there is no remembrance of the past, no expectations for the future. I'm hungry now. I want to go outside and play now. I want to watch television now. It's not a bad idea because you're living in the present. Well, time itself, you know the basics. Let me bore you with it, okay? What time is it? Our Earth. You know the basics. The Earth, a planet on which we live, rotates in the light of a star we call the sun. Against the background of stars, the Earth takes 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 4 seconds to rotate once on its axis. Against the sun as a background and a reference, it takes exactly 24 hours. The difference? It would take 4 or 5 minutes to talk about that, but I don't have the time. So I won't. Right now, if you were standing on the Earth, and we are, I hope, the Earth is 7,926 miles in diameter. It's about 26 miles less through the poles. We're kind of squishy, and 4.5 billion years of rotation has kind of flattened us out a little, but still, for all intents and purposes, we live on a round orb. Right now, if you were standing on the equator of the Earth, as the Earth rotates, you would be moving at approximately 1,040 miles per hour. Well, we aren't at the equator. It'd be pretty fast, wouldn't it? We're about 41 degrees north. Up here where we are in Hyannis, we're moving that way at about 600 miles per hour-ish or so. Okay? Meanwhile, the Earth itself is orbiting around the sun at 18.5 miles per second. How fast is that? 65 to 67,000 miles per hour? Well, which one is it? The Earth speeds up and slows down a couple thousand miles per hour. Why? Because the orbit isn't round, it's elliptical, like the Earth a little bit. So how do we keep time when we leave the Earth? Our whole concept of timekeeping is based upon the rotation of this planet in the light of that star, the sun. What time do they keep when they go on moon voyages? Earth time, don't they? Well, they use the military clock. 24-hour Zulu time is time kept at Greenwich, England. They keep the military type of time. What happens if you went to Mars? What kind of time would you keep? Well, Mars's day is about the same length as ours, about 24.5 hours. Its year is about twice as long as ours, however, but I bet they would still keep Earth time because that way the people on Earth and you are on the same reference point. Boring, huh? Not too much. Really? Okay. Well, what if the Earth stopped moving? What if the Earth stopped rotating? Would time stop? No. My watch would still be ticking. Your heart would still be beating. So no, that doesn't stop time. So what is time? Time is an invention of the human mind to keep track of the chronological order of events. Well, events can't take place unless time passes. Let's reduce the passage of time to nothing. Even atoms do not vibrate. Everything freezes. Your heart stops, your watch stops, the earth stops, the sun stops shining. Nothing moves. Will anything ever grow old? Aristotle put it this way. This is not a new thought, obviously. Time is motion, and motion is time. The more you think about it, the more correct that seems to be. Time is motion, and motion is time. How long have you been aware of time? I can still remember being in about the 3rd grade or so. Maybe I was a little slow. I remember in the 3rd grade or so, my parents pointing at the clock on the wall. I said, well, what time is it? And they were pointing at the clock, and they said, okay, when the big hand's here and the little hand's there. You've had this speech. And taught me how to tell time. Basically, we've only been aware of the passage of time since we've known how to tell time until now in our life. That's not very long. We can talk about the future. We can refer to time in the past, the American Revolution, Greek civilizations, Egyptian civilizations, prehistoric civilizations. But let's go back even farther. 1 million years in time, 10 million years in time, 100 million years in time. We can talk about it. We have no sensation of it. I once used to show students a movie in which this geologist is standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon looking down. He says, 10 million years ago. He's looking at the layers of rock, the strata. He says, 10 million years, 100 million years, 1 billion years. He said, I wonder what the significance of my life is in these vast units of time. And I guess we probably have too. What is the significance of our life in these vast units of time? Well, when we start talking about 1 million, 100 million, 1 billion years ago, we can go right back to 4.5 billion years ago, the formation of the solar system, and before that, the formation of the galaxy. We are now talking about what astronomers and geologists call deep time. Deep time. Time beyond, not beyond imagination. We can imagine it, but we have no sensation of it. Deep time. When you talk about deep time, words like infinity and eternity come to light, don't they? What is infinity? Distance without end. What is eternity? Time without end. What is God? Infinity and eternity. He is the beginning of time. He is the end of time. He is time. I am the Alpha and the Omega, I believe is the way he put it. She put it, as other people told me. Our Creator put it. I don't want to be gender sensitive in here at all. Okay. Well, how does time stop at the speed of light? Albert Einstein did a little mental experiment. He pictured himself riding on a beam of light and imagined what things would look like. And I kind of understood it. Let me try to explain it to you in a way that I understood it. I was a B- C+ student, so I picked it up, so most of you should too, right? You know those big circus searchlights, about 5 or 6 feet across, and they got them on the clouds and stuff? They're trying to draw you to see a carnival or a circus or something like that. Picture one of these things, 5 or 6 feet across, with a beam as sharp as a laser blasting outward. On the face of that searchlight are the numbers of a clock, the face of a clock, with both the hands pointing straight up at 12 o'clock. Imagine us riding on a light train, where every car of the train is 1 light minute long. Well, how fast does light move? 186,267 miles per second. So for 1 minute, at 267,000 plus miles per second, that beam of light goes blasting out there, and if you stuck your face in it, it would say 12 o'clock. Let's say both the hands are straight up. All right? That's the first car in our light train. Then it clicks to 12:02, and for another 1 minute, or 11 million miles of light, goes blasting out into space, and it says 12:01. And then the next section of our light train says 12:02. Each one 11 million miles long. Let's say at 12 o'clock that you and I had this magical Disney-like ability to jump into that beam of light and go flying out with it at the speed of light at 12 o'clock. Oh, wow, this is great. I look behind me, what time does the clock say? 12. In front of me, the image says 12. In fact, as long as I continue to travel at the speed of light, will 12:01 ever reach me? What happens if I were to slow down a little bit? 12:01 would slowly begin to catch me. I would seem normal. My watch would still seem normal. My heart would still seem normal. Time would seem normal to me. But compared to where I left, time would pass very slowly. And the faster I traveled, the more slowly it would pass until it didn't pass at all once I got to the speed of light. I would be locked into that segment of the beam of light that says 12 o'clock. But what if you were to speed up? Would you go into 11:59? All right? 11:59. In other words, if you exceeded the speed of light, would you go back into time? I don't know. Physicists and stuff would probably give you a much different answer than that. And there are those in here that are very accomplished in those fields, much more so than I am. So I won't go into it. Why? Because it would take too much time. All right. Well, when did time itself begin? The Big Bang? Is that it? Like the universe was this big firecracker. Poof, like it came out of nowhere. When Einstein's theory of relativity actually allowed him to see that his own mathematics allowed for a beginning to the universe, he didn't like it. He said, I need to check my math. I want to go back and make sure this is true. But the more he checked it, the more he realized that it was true. My theories on the relativity show that, the very field equations and stuff, show that time, space, matter, and energy all blasted into existence out of nowhere, out of a mathematical point. A mathematical point does not occupy space. It's simply a location. And it goes blasting outward in all directions, eventually condensing to form galaxies, stars, planets, and people. So what direction is it blasting out from? It doesn't make any difference. Wherever you are in the universe, our galaxy, it looks like every other galaxy is moving away from you because the universe is enlarging. Everything is moving away from everything else in general. Not absolutely, but in general. Andromeda Galaxy is heading toward us, but don't worry, it won't get here for several million years. All right. And it'll collide with us, and who knows what will happen. But wherever you're standing in the universe, it appears the rest of the universe is moving away from you. Picture it this way. You got a balloon. You blow it up about this big, and you put dots with a magic mark on the outside of the balloon. As you blow the balloon up, every dot gets farther and farther from every other dot. We don't know what direction the universe is coming from because everything seems to be moving away from us. Well, now comes the big questions, mysteries of life. What was here before the universe that could create time, space, matter, and energy? The only thing I can think of is God. A supernatural entity of some sort created the universe. Well, as the skeptic would say, well, what caused God? I first said this, one of my science colleagues said, yeah, well, where did God come from? Who created God? I said, wait a minute. We need to have a definition for God before you do anything else. And this is not original. I'm going to paraphrase St. Anselm, who in the 13th century said, God is a being than which nothing greater can be conceived. God is a being than which nothing greater can be conceived. If you can imagine something that came before God, and God is greater than anything of which you could conceive, then by definition, God cannot not exist. Right? I got my answer for it now, then I didn't, all right? Only took me 30 years to figure it out. But I like St. Anselm's definition. Robert Schuller, the old TV preacher, remember seeing him at all on television? I used to call it bathrobe church because you get up in your pajamas and watch it in the morning. He said this about God. He says, I believe the universe was created and is presided over by a supernatural intelligence that is benevolent and kind. That's a nice definition, nice way to put it. So what is the meaning of life? There it is. Let's get to the crux of us. Any reasonably intelligent person will ask themselves, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of life? I think it's pretty simple. The answers to the big questions are small, said Einstein. You hear God, you hear the words of God thinking. I think the meaning of life is to know God. The whole purpose is to simply recognize God's existence, to know God. To which the skeptic says, okay, what are you going to do now? Go sit in a cave somewhere and chant and do, for the rest of your life? No. Let's get another meaning out of that, a secondary meaning. The purpose of life is to know God. Then what? To serve God. Doesn't that make sense? You can serve God in all kinds of ways. We got people in here serving God in many ways. Whether you tend to the needs of the people who are very needy, whether you go visit the sick, whether you help out at church, whether you rescue an animal. And if you can't do any of that kind of stuff, you can still pray. If you can pray, you can affect the welfare of others in a very positive manner. The most amazing thing that I've ever read or thought of that convinces me that it's a God, that there is a God, a supernatural intelligence, is this. And you've heard it probably spoken in other ways. There's so many science shows on television today. Everything in the universe is made of vibrating atoms. The earth, us, everything. All right? We are made of earth materials, primarily hydrogen and oxygen, water, H2O. Some calcium and some iron and stuff mixed in there. Earth materials, we've taken into here, and they've become a human body. How does a stack of atoms become consciously aware of its own existence? One of the 4 or 5 fundamental questions science has not yet been able to answer is, how did matter arrive to consciousness? Wow. So what is the meaning of the universe? Whoa, there's a little question we could talk about for a while, isn't it? What is the meaning of the universe? Well, God put it this way, or at least Scripture puts it this way. Why is the universe here? By the way, I'm reading to you out, it's getting a little tattered around the edge, but this is a Revised Standard Version that was given to me in my father's handwriting September 30th of 1956. I got this 60 years ago when I graduated to junior Sunday school, all right? But the words are the same. What is the meaning of the universe? Psalms 19, verse 1 puts it this way. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. The universe exists for God to display his glory. We are a way for the universe to recognize its own existence. Doesn't that make sense? If the universe had no meaning, if there were no God and the universe had no meaning, wouldn't it be meaningless for us to even conceive of the question? What purpose would that serve in a meaningless universe? The heavens declare the glory of God, and we are witness to that. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Nothing makes me more aware of the unfathomable nature of God than astronomy and the world around me. I'm not the first to think this. I'm certain you have too. And maybe you've heard this. Psalm 8 puts it this way, verses 3 and 4. When I look at thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon, the stars that thou hast established, what is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou dost care for him? Who are we that you even know we exist and care about us? Isn't that wondrous? Well, I've summarized 5 hours of seminar here in about 15 minutes, and I want to leave you with a video. If you don't relate to the video, just appreciate the art, maybe the tune or something like that. But keep in mind also that one of the most prevalent shapes in nature is the spiral, from the crown of your head to the shape of a galaxy. This video kind of summarizes my path. We all have our path, we say, your path to the knowledge of God. It kind of summarizes my path a little bit poetically, culturally, and spiritually. We've talked about deep time. I leave you with deep peace. Namaste. Charlie?
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at www.unityoncapecod.org.